Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is my talker. It helps me speak October 19th, 2024.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Mel's channel. Today we are going to be talking about how Mel eats. We get a lot of comments or during live streams where people ask Mel's favorite food or what the thing in the back of her is, that just random comments like that we thought it would be a good time to address kind of again how Mel gets her nutrition and stuff like that, because we get a lot of comments about it. So we thought that today we would talk about it. So we can start with, what is a G-tube?
G-tube.
Yeah, so Mel gets fed solely through a G-tube, and a G-tube is a gastrostomy feeding tube. So the G is short for gastrostomy. And this is a tube that's inserted through the belly that brings nutrition directly to the stomach. She also gets her meds and water via her G-tube. So a G-tube is for kids or adults who can't eat by mouth and need supplemental nutrition or need all of their nutrition via a tube.
I agree.
So it ensures that people who have trouble eating by mouth can get all the calories and such that they need in a different manner, because for some reason, whatever it may be, that might be different from person to person, they cannot eat by mouth. So Mel has a G-tube because due to her disability,
basal ganglia thiamine reactive disorder,
which is also called thiamine transporter deficiency. Due to her disability, she's a really, really hard time swallowing, which is another reason why she drools so much, is because she has trouble controlling the muscles that allow her to swallow. So, because she can't swallow, she can't eat, because it would risk choking and things like that. So that's something that we obviously want to avoid. Now, when Mel was a little younger, she used to have some feedings by mouth. It would be only pureed food. But ever since Mel's been older, it's been a little harder for her to swallow as much, so she doesn't feel necessarily comfortable anymore doing her oral feeds. So she gets all of her nutrients and calories via her tube feed. So there are 4 working parts to the G-tube and the feeding system that Mel has. At the end of this video, we'll have a little breakdown of each part of it, and we'll show you kind of what each part does. But for now, we're gonna talk about the 4 parts of her feeding tube.
Feed bag.
Mel said the first part is the feed bag, which holds the formula that Mel uses. Mel's formula is a combination of a powder and water, so a lot of her water content comes from her formula, but the formula mixture obviously adds the nutrients and calories that she needs. The bag that she has holds 500 milliliters total of feed, and she gets a new bag every single day. So at a time, there's not necessarily always 500 milliliters in the bag. Sometimes she starts with a smaller amount of feed in the morning and it increases during the day. But whenever the amount of feed that's in her bag runs out, the pump makes a very loud noise that signals that the feed is done, which is our signal to turn it off. And then either after it runs out of feed, she'll either get medicine through her G-tube, water, or she might stay off of it if we need to put her in bed, or she needs to get changed, things like that. But that is all the consistencies of the bag, and then the bag is put into the next part, which is the pump. So the feed bag is connected to the pump, and the pump is what makes the food, it delivers the food into her stomach. So the pump sets the rate of how much feed she'll get per hour. So Mel gets 150 milliliters per hour during the daytime. So that's the rate at which the pump is set, and it manually pumps the feed through the tube into her Mickey button, which we'll talk about in a minute. But she gets 150 milliliters per hour during the day and about 73 to 75 milliliters per hour at night, and throughout the whole day she gets about 1450 to 1550 milliliters throughout the entire day of feed. So in total, that's how much she usually gets. She usually gets fed on a 24-hour cycle. Obviously there are little breaks in between for whatever we need to do, but that is usually how it goes for Mal. But it can be different for other people. Some people only get fed, will get fed continuously. Some people will only get a certain amount of feed. It's just depending on the need of the person, but that's what it's like specifically for Mal. So the pump is connected to her wheelchair. So the pump is hung on her wheelchair, and the feed bag is hung on a little pole that's connected to her wheelchair. You'll see in the video at the end how it's all kind of set up.
Extension.
The next part of her G-tube is the extension. So the extension connects the feeding tube, which is the bag has a tube that kind of connects all the way down, and then this is connected to the extension. So this connects the feeding tube to the Mickey button. So the extension is used to administer things like the feed, or it can be used to give meds or give water. There are two different ends to the extension. One is it's a bigger hole that's meant to put in the tube for the feed, and then there's a smaller side hole for syringes, for medicine, and water. And Mel usually gets 800 milliliters of water a day. That is in supplement to the water that's mixed into her feed.
I agree.
The extension usually gets used until it's kind of gross, not really good to use anymore, so it gets kind of changed out as needed. Each flush is about 60 milliliters of water total. It'll usually 30 milliliters of that will get used at once to flush it after feeding, and then she'll get meds after that, and then the remaining 30 milliliters will get pushed afterward to push all of the med in, and then she'll get hooked back up and the feeding will go through.
G-tube.
Yeah, and it'll go directly into her G-tube. So the last kind of working piece of the whole G-tube system is the Mickey button. It's the entrance to the balloon that's put into her stomach that allows the feed to get into her stomach. The Mickey button is what is seen on the outside of the stomach. The button is connected to the extension and it allows for feeding straight into the stomach. So it's just something that's right on the outside. It needs to get changed every 3 to 6 months, kind of depending. It is something that can be done at home. Usually her mom and another PCA will change it here at home every 3 to 6 months, depending on if it leaks or if it just feels uncomfortable for Mel, then it needs to be changed as soon as possible. But usually they gauge that based on what Mel needs. So some people, depending on, again, it varies person to person, but some people get G-tubes placed temporarily if they just need help with feeding for short term, and some people get it long term. Mel will more likely than not need a G-tube for the rest of her life. It is just the best way to make sure that she gets the nutrients and calories that she needs in an efficient way that is safe for her. And it's also a good way to get her meds and her water, obviously, with her issues with swallowing.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below. Don't miss the next video.
Bye, everyone!
So now we're going to show a little tutorial of what happens when Mel gets her feed. So right now, her mom is flushing her with about 30 milliliters of water. That way that the feed can get pushed into her belly. And then after she administers about 30 milliliters, she's going to take it out and clamp it back up again. That way she can go grab her medicine. This was about the time of her afternoon med. So it's time for her to put the syringe in, and then she pushes the meds in, clamps it back up, and then pushes the remaining 30 milliliters of water. That way the entire dosage of medicine can make it into her system, and that way she's getting her extra water that she needs. And then afterwards she closes it up. And then, because this was after her feed had ran out, her mom has to refill the bag. So she fills the bag with about 400 milliliters of feed. This is just how much she wanted to put in for now. The feed gets mixed up. It's a mix of formula and water, and she just kind of pre-makes it and then brings it in to fill the bag. She closes it up, and then she's going to point out that the tube that's attached to the feed bag needs to have no air in it, so she has to prime it, which is something that she does off camera. And then you'll also see that she kind of has to readjust because there can be no kinks in the line of the feeding tube, because then it can get stuck and it will stop the pump, and it's just a whole process to get it restarted again. So she has to make sure that there's nothing in the way, nothing's being kinked in the line. And then she inserts the ending of the feeding tube into the extension in the bigger hole, and then she just makes sure that there's no kinks, and she pushes it down into like out down on Mel's chair, that way that there's no kinks again. And then she's ready to be turned for her pump to be turned on. And then this is her feeding bag that's all full and the feed running in the line. And then this is her pump at 150 milliliters per hour. And yeah, that's it.